You hear me?
Yep.
Awesome. And all right, and we are recording.
Nice.
So finally, you got to forgive me. Technology is not my best thing, even though I'm a filmmaker or what have you. It's still not my best suit. However, I do the best that I can. So I want to say welcome to the Deeva Show. I'm Deeva Gordon, and I'm with DEU LLC Productions, and I'm a filmmaker myself. And I decided that I wanted to bring in an audience to communicate with many different filmmakers and those in the creative industry, opportunities to meet and greet and find out what other opportunities are out there, and where they could possibly take their creativity.
Mhm.
For instance, I know you work with PhillyCam, correct? Okay.
Yes.
And I've been a member of PhillyCam for quite some time now, since 2015. I've been a member. And you all have been monumental in so many different ways to so many different projects that we have. So later on in the show, I'm going to ask you some questions about PhillyCam and itself, but I want to ask you some questions to you. How did you begin with PhillyCam? What was your experience with that?
Yeah, I started with PhillyCam actually as an intern in 2015, so we probably crossed paths at some point. I had studied at Temple University in, at the time it was broadcast, telecommunications, mass media, and turned into media studies production. And so right after I graduated, got an internship with PhillyCam, and something that really struck me and inspired me to stay on and kind of get involved in other ways was just how unique PhillyCam is, because it is the community access television and radio station. And so they were some of the most diverse studio spaces and workshops that I'd ever seen, especially being in school, and having seen trends in the studio spaces and having worked on some sets, I was definitely catching, wind of okay, this is very much like a male-driven environment, and there's a specific, type of person that you were expecting to see on set all the time. And there weren't a lot of people who looked like me, who were creating media or creating content that resonated with me either. And so getting into PhillyCam, I was able to see people who looked like me, people who didn't look like me, people didn't look like those other people that I see all the time, and work with people that I probably never would have encountered or had that opportunity if it weren't for PhillyCam, and seeing how unique and motivated those voices are to create the specific content that means something to them really just inspired me. So after the internship, I stayed on as a freelancer, and when they had a job opening for a part-time position, I harassed them until they gave it to me. I was like, okay, I love you so much, give me. And now, my position has evolved over the years. I'm going on 5 years of working at PhillyCam. I guess it'll be if you count the internship, almost 6 years of, really working. And now, I'm full-time and a part of the, main team of making sure that people have what they need to create, their media that matters.
That is awesome. So now, as you said, and you progress, you are the programming and production coordinator.
Yes.
At PhillyCam. So tell me a little about that position.
Yeah, so that's a position that evolved over time, from seeing a need within our membership. So we're a member-based organization, so anyone in Philadelphia or surrounding areas can become a member of PhillyCam, and that gets you access to our, studio spaces and equipment, and then you can submit to the channel, and it goes on TV or it goes on the radio. And so I was originally just on the tech team, kind of working as support, making sure people knew how to use the equipment and, making sure their lights were set up and things like that. And we found that there was, we have all this technical help and workshops, but it was still people coming in who, have never picked up a camera or never even thought of a production. These are not professionals who are filmmakers,
Right.
right? Who didn't know where to start, or didn't know, what goes into a production or how to find crew. And so I kind of came up into becoming like a consultant, where I would meet with members and kind of walk them through the steps of production, and give them resources and make sure they had, a full plan. And then from that, it was like, how do we kind of bridge the gap between like people are creating the content to how are they submitting it to the channel. So that's where the programming comes in, is that I'm also like, let's make sure you get through the whole process, like from start to finish, and it's on the air. That's what my job is just to kind of be there next to our members to make sure that they have what they need, including, other members to help and tech support, and, even just motivational support. I'm there as everyone's cheerleader. Just like, you can do
Listen,
it.
I'm listening to you, and that is phenomenal. And one of the things that you said earlier is that Philly Cam is unique, and your job is unique. Everyone's job is unique, but the uniqueness of it is that, like you said, you're working with people that have creative ideas, have thought processes, put it down on paper. They're really not sure of where to go from there, and it's kind of like you see this light, and you know that they got it. It's just that little piece that they may need, or organization, and showing them how it's done and how they can get it done. Because for many, many years, it was not tangible
Mm-hmm.
to get to where a lot of people are now in the independent film industry itself. Um, and just like you said before, as far as seeing certain, how could I say, certain types that you didn't fit into, and you're capable, it's something that you want to do, you're just not really sure where to get started or how to get started. So
Mm-hmm.
with Philly Cam, it gives you that roundabout, and put people like yourself that are very creative and very well driven into place to help others along the way to get it done. Because I will say that when my first production was on Philly Cam, I I was lost at first. I was lost. I wasn't sure how to go about it. I wasn't sure what to do. But Debbie
Mm-hmm.
Rudman, if
Yep.
I'm not mistaken, Debbie Rudman reached out to me, and she showed me some things, and walked me through it, just like you walk people through it. She walked me through it, and that was some time ago. And it was something that I just never thought would happen. So it's great that you're in that place to help those like myself that are starting out, and those that are still there doing different things, and are trying to how could I say, grow within the industry even more. So
Mm-hmm.
that's wonderful that you have that opportunity. Especially, I can just imagine, because when I go to Philly Cam, when I go down there to the location, it's just so many creative people walking around.
Yeah.
It's so many creative people walking around, and it's a very, how could I say, open and pleasant environment. A very open
Mm-hmm.
and pleasant environment. And I'm looking forward to getting back there, and sitting down in the meet and greet room and all of that. So I'm going to ask you a couple questions. You are a producer and a co-host of horror media uh, podcast, Ghouls Next Door.
Yes.
Tell me about that, because I'm just going to say it's funny how things work. I was just talking to a friend of mine the other day that stated that he was trying to write, he was interested, and he wrote some things for a horror script. And I was like, interesting. So when your bio came through and I was looking, I was like, wow, okay. I'm just going to say there's not a lot of horror films that come from, I'll say, the indie industry so much. I'll just say it that way. It's not a lot of horror films. So what intrigued you to go in that direction to do horror films? And if you could tell me also about the podcast, The Ghouls Next Door, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. So for me, horror is, this genre that is kind of on the outskirts of most genre. It's not as, like watched, you know, like or structured. There's not as many eyes on horror genre, so it does tend to get away with a lot more. And most people, when they hear horror, they think of the traditional slashers like Friday the 13th or, you know, Nightmare on Elm Street, which is like, those are fine. But what my show deals with is specifically horror that is looking to kind of highlight some of the more realistic, like historical or psychological traumas that we as people struggle through. So like, for example, one of the a recent, like a, what was the recent award show? One of them just had a nomination for a horror film of La Llorona, which is this remake of the Weeping Woman, but it was specifically geared towards retelling about the Guatemalan genocide that happened in the 80s. And there was like a trial that happened. And so it was more about like the guilt and the trauma of these people who were struggling and kind of fighting against that, and using something like, you know, La Llorona, which is just, you know, a kid's folk tale, to really show what the horrors were of those people that they were like, you know, suffering from. And so on my show, The Ghouls Next Door, we're a media analysis podcast. So there are plenty of like film review shows where, you know, we watch a movie and then we're like, it's good, it's bad, what's up? But we're not really like that. So we divide our show into two parts. So we have one where we will do a whole section about either like the history that is being explored in that media, or maybe the psychology or the science. Like if it's something that's like parallel universe or something, we talk about the science of parallel universes, or, you know, for something like Lovecraft Country, which came out last year, or the book Lovecraft Country, which is, you know, there's spooky monsters, but it's actually really more about the Jim Crow era of America and how it was, you know, terrifying to be a Black person during that time. So it's like, we'll talk about the, you know, real life things that are happening that are inspiring this media. And then the second part is actually going in and talking about how well or not well this media address those concerns, or what it's trying to say outside of just being like, you know, something that's gory or fun. And it's definitely like, we dub it edutainment. So it's educational and entertaining, because we have fun with it, but it very much is like we are doing analysis on the media as a whole and what it's trying to do, not so much like, did I like it or not? You know, like, was it, you know,
scary? like the Siskel and Ebert type thing. You don't want it to be so cut and dry, but that's a good thing, because it's like delivering it in that way with some comedy and also with analyzation helps people to understand the point of it better, opposed to just saying you like it, you don't like it, pointing out what the point was to, you know, was to come across within the film itself, and the goal it was trying to reach. And honestly, without you explaining it that way, I would have thought that it was, you know, the slashing and the so forth and so on. But we do have a lot of stories to tell, unfortunately, within that genre that many people are unaware of, and finding more creative ways of delivering it to them allows the message to get out even that much better. It's not as rigid as it used to be, which is a good thing. So when does your podcast take place?
So we're a weekly show. We come out every Tuesday. We're available wherever, you know, you listen to podcasts, but we're also available on YouTube. So we do create like visual components for our show. And the YouTube channel will also include sometimes clips or whatever we're referencing. We'll have like images so that it really helps kind of round out what the content is. And we also break it up so that like if you're just someone who enjoys the facts part where you're like, I just want to learn about history, then you can just watch that. Or if you're like, I just want to hear about this film, you can watch just the film parts of it as well. And so it's, you know, those little things. We just did we do like series, and our last one was called For the Culture, and that was where we were specifically looking for films that were trying to, you know, talk about specific traumas and horrors that a community was experiencing, and usually communities that aren't getting enough attention. Like we started off with an indigenous horror film. We had the Guatemalan horror film, His House from Netflix, which is about South Sudanese immigrants. So it was like specifically picking, like, you probably didn't know this movie's out there, but kind of watching it and allowing yourself to have what we find is like a catharsis with horror, is that you can safely live out these traumas and empathize and experience them without like actually being in danger. And it really allows you to understand a whole world that you probably didn't even know was out there.
Wow, that's phenomenal. So I also want to ask you, you made a statement in within your bio, and you said that you believe media can be used as a tool to bring social change, and works in all that you do, of course, impactful and inspiring. I'm going to ask you, because we lived history in these past couple of years, past 2 years. I'll say past, what, 5, actually.
Yeah.
With everything that has been taking place last year and the beginning of this year, how would you apply some of those things that has traumatized this world to, as you say, a horror film? Is that something that you all would touch? It is very large of everything that was going on, but I mean, from the pandemic to social injustice, would that be, or has that been will it be a contributor to something that you all would discuss and talk about?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Throughout, like, if you just look historically at horror, and you kind of look past just the general like jump scares or anything like that, you'll find that horror has always been used as a tool to remark upon what we were struggling against or we were afraid of. If you think about horror movies during the Cold War, we're very much like, okay, we're worried about the fact that there's a nuclear it's impending, right? Thinking of how zombies have evolved from being, there's like racial elements to it, but there's also the fear of epidemics, but there's also the fear of consumerism and kind of losing who you are in the world of capitalism. And so we do we're a little nerdy about it, but we've talked, especially last summer, we had like a whole schedule where we were going to have some fun, and when it started with Ahmaud Arbery when he was attacked just from jogging. We were like, that's it, like we need to use this as a tool, our own tool to educate people on what's going on. So we actually, like, sometimes we'll cover not necessarily horror films, but we'll cover the horrors about that film. So we talked about like See You Yesterday, which is a time travel film that is about a young man who's killed by police, and it's his younger sister trying to change that. And it's talking about like the problems with people of color not being able to time travel, because that's not a real, like, why would you want to go back? It's never been okay.
Right. Right.
Or we talked about, we had a whole episode about elections and about like the importance of getting out there and your civic participation, but and something that goes into what I was saying about it bringing about social change is there's two sides to media. And I think like one is like we're educating, we're informing, we're telling you what's going on. But there's a whole second part to that, which is like inspiring change, right? Is to give people tools and resources to do something about it. Because if you're just making people sad, it's like,
if you're just talking about it, you're just talking about it like everybody else is talking about it. But what are you doing to help them, to encourage them to indulge and get involved? And you're absolutely right. I'll be honest with you. I wasn't in a position, and I do my show every second and fourth Thursday. I was not in a position to actually gather up, especially with everything going on with the pandemic. However, I did not talk about it much, like for the reason, like you said, I did not talk about it much on my platform, only because I didn't want to be another talker. I didn't want to be another talker. I wanted to be a doer. And I did, some what I could do. And a lot of times I don't really talk about it, you know, community service and things like that. I did what I
Mhm.
could do. But yes, I totally get that. But it's great that you have that second half that will encourage people to actually engage and help them to understand that change is only going to come about if you change how you address the situation and stop making it a topic of conversation, but a part of action,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
and,
So that
and what
yeah,
and movement.
we include like links and resources in our show notes. So we always have one if we cite anything because we do research, we'll have our sources there. But we also have links that are like to make a change, and it's always based upon whatever topic we're talking about. So if it's for more information to back, you know, an organization that's working or to donate, like we did a queer horror series, and so we, you know, linked to resources for young people who might be like struggling with their own identity. So it's like whenever we're covering something that's that heavy, we want to make sure that we're giving people a takeaway so that it's actionable at the end. It's like I'm sad and now I want to change it.
Yes, I like that. I totally agree. And this is Ghouls Next Door, and it's on
Yes.
Tuesdays at what time?
It drops usually about 1 o'clock, but it's a podcast. So after, you know, that episode drops, it's always available. We have 140, so we've been here for 3 years, and like I said, we're in Ghouls Next Door on Gmail, on Google, for YouTube, as well as just checking us out on theghouls.nextdoor.com.
Okay. Well, y'all got to make sure that y'all check out Ghouls Next Door. I know definitely I will be. Um, we're going to the next one.
Okay.
Black tribals,
Tribbles, yes.
tribbles. My fault. Tribbles. Black tribbles. Tell us about Black tribbles.
Yeah, so the Black Tribbles is a geek talk radio show that's like a podcast and a radio show, composed of all nerds of color, who, you know, really geek out, and we explore like geekdom in whatever form or shape that takes. It's not just like what's happening in the geek sphere, really. Like, it's not a news show. It is similar to Ghouls Next Door, where, you know, we're really talking about the community as a whole, or you know, what this media or the things that we geek out really mean. And, you know, everyone has their tribble designation, and so I'm the horror tribble because I, you know, love horror. But we have like the Bat tribble because he loves Batman, or we have the Storm tribble or Master tribble. And so they have been going on for 10 years. I'm a recent addition to the show. I produce and direct their web series Tribbles After Dark, and we are finishing up this year, actually next month, and we're ending on a high note. We're running for the Guinness World Record of longest audio only podcast of 60 hours.
Oh,
We're going to be doing that
wow.
in March.
Oh, wow.
Or April, yes.
That's awesome. That's awesome. It's like sometimes I find getting my three or 4 hours in, it's a little challenging. You talking about
Yeah.
60 hours?
Yes, straight.
Ooh, that content has to be strong and continuous.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So I am going to say, when you say geeks, I don't know. For me, when I hear the word geek, I think of passionate.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's where I go with it. Some people are so associated that has to be brainiacs or this and that and the other. I just think that they're very passionate people that are committed to what they like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's exactly it. Because I mean, we
Yeah.
have people who are like, I'm like the shoe tribble, right? Like, it's like whatever it is that you love and like, you know, so much about, and it brings you joy. That's your tribble designation. That's what you geek out about. And we welcome you into the Tribble Nation, and you know, you can converse with us and geek out, and we love that.
I love the passion. So you direct short comedy horrors?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, those are under the Ghouls Next Door. They're just very short. I think there's none that are like over 2.5 minutes. They are just short horror comedies that are there to kind of flip the, you know, and kind of critique horror in a way. But it's just a way for us to let off steam when we're not being, you know, analytical.
So, all right. So I'm going to ask you a question. Have you ever considered writing a film short? Like it's
Yeah.
under 13, it's like, you know, I think it's 15 minutes and under or something like that. Have you ever considered that?
Yeah, I'm actually in the works of I have like an actual serious, like not comedy, horror film that's like, you know, at it's my pride and joy. It's like my baby. Of which is like the intent is to really subvert some of the tropes that we see, to have like, you know, strong female characters, which horror tends to have more than most genres, but to really like kind of turn things on their head. And it's got monsters and it's got, you know, really cool effects, but we're working on just like a very short snippet of that to
Hmm.
use then to, you know, look for funding to create like a larger piece. So that's what
Okay.
I'm working on right now. So it's like TBD.
Okay. Okay. And you design terrifying soundscapes.
Yeah.
So you're the sound person for you. You got it all. You got it
I
all. You got,
wear a lot of hats.
I'm just saying, you got the writing part of it. You have the designing the sounds of it. Like you have all of the making of you know, a nice horror film for everyone.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's the dream.
you, we should be looking for you to come out with your first film soon, right? Like you're
Yeah.
in a perfect place. You have the perfect surrounding, the perfect support, you know. So that would be awesome to see. Filmed by Gabby Castro, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if I asked this, I may have, but what intrigued you most um, or inspired you most to go into the horror genre? Was it just to was it from a community active standpoint that you just wanted to get information out there? You wanted to make people more knowledgeable? What intrigued you, inspired you to actually choose that?
Yeah, I have always loved and appreciated horror. It just was always this thing that I enjoyed. Like I was very afraid when I was young, and at one point I watched a film that scared me so much I was like never afraid of another one. And there
Oh,
was like a
really?
thrill. There's a thrill for horror listen like watchers. That's kind of like an adrenaline rush. It's almost like a roller coaster because you have this safe environment where you get scared, but it's okay. Like you're not really in danger, and so it makes you giddy. It's like you go into a haunted house and you're like, oh, like you know,
Right, right, right.
yeah. So there is joy that I would always get from horror. Um, and you know, it was actually with the Black Tribbles when I, you know, first went on their show just as a guest, and they were like, what do you geek out about? And my friend was on there and he was like, horror, you love horror? And I was like, I do. You're right, I do love horror. And I had always wanted to, you know, because I work so closely with media creators of all forms, that I was like, I want my own thing, right? Like I want my own show. I want to produce something and use the tools that I am always sharing with others and helping them to do something that I'm passionate about. And I wanted to do a podcast because I love that medium. And I was like, but what, like, I don't want to just make something for making its sake, right? Like, because
Right.
it's easy to just make a show where you're just talking to your friends, and that's fine. But I wanted it to be something that was purposeful and that stood out from other programs. And so, me and my
Yes.
co host is my best friend, Kat Cushion. We both love horror movies. She comes from like she has a history degree, and so she has like she also like studies psychology. And I was like, and I have my film degree. What can we do with that? And so we were like, let's unpack horror. Let's do that because it is such a great medium that doesn't a genre that doesn't get enough attention for what it's doing. And so we were like, let's shine a light on that and be intentional in something different.
Right. I agree. I agree. And it's very important to make sure that you stand out from everything else because like you said, especially with COVID and everything going on, so many people are in front of the camera and doing their own thing. And shout out to them for, you know, getting on and doing something because this pandemic has affected so many in so many different ways. So I don't have much time left, but I do want to thank you for being my special guest
Yeah,
on the
thank
Diva
you.
Show. I do have a couple of questions that I want to ask. So I already asked you what you did at Philly Cam. Um, can you tell us what Philly Cam has to offer for its members and how they could possibly get affiliated?
Yeah, so if you're a Philadelphian or in the very direct surrounding areas, you can come to PhillyCam. Right now it's virtual, like you would virtually come to PhillyCam and become a member. And with your membership, that gets you access to take workshops, to get certifications to use our equipment and space. So we don't rent equipment or space, it is reserved. And the exchange is that whatever you create, you also air on the channel. It belongs to you. You can put that anywhere else, but we get a copy. We get the first copy, and that's the only exchange for that. So we have classes so you can learn how to use the equipment or space, but we also have classes that are more about like fleshing out your skill set and really learning new things. And because of COVID, we've really honed in on making content from home, so using something like Zoom, or there's a resource called StreamYard. We have plenty of workshops that are designed to equip people with tools and resources that they can create content from home, because we feel like it shouldn't stop you. You should, if you really feel passionate about something, then you can do it. And so to do that, you would go to phillycam.org, and you can check out like how to join, our how to join page, which has like our info session video, and then you would eventually take a class with me to finish out your orientation, and I would teach you all the things that you need to know, and then you can start creating your content and submitting it to the channel for TV or radio, and getting it out there, or just learning and connecting with other media creatives so that you can help other people create content and build up your own skills, so that when you're ready for that feature film, like I'm ready to go, you will have all of that information, tools, and you'll have a crew that could help you because you've been connecting with others.
Yes. And their classes are very, when I say intense, they're very informative, showing you how to use the camera. Those of you that have been in front of the camera, maybe you want to take a chance and, get behind the camera and learn how that's done. And like Gabby said, once you become a member, it's not about renting the equipment. It's about reserving it, and respectfully, when you finish your piece, they get first dibs. It's not a copyright type thing, but they want to make sure that they're able to display the content that you developed using their equipment and, their space. They have office space there. They have computers for editing. There's people that will help you with the editing as well. So many different courses and so many different things that you can do with PhillyCam. Gabby, I want to thank you so much for being my special guest on the Deeva Show. You were very informative and, of course, always very pleasant to speak with. And I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to interview with me. And I'm sure I'll be talking with you soon. I know that PhillyCam now is open 2 days per week, but on appointment basis only. So maybe I'll see you on one of those times when I come down for an appointment. All right. I just want
Absolutely.
to thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Not a problem. And you please stay safe and sanitize.
Yes.
All right. Have a great day.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.